And so I'm going to go ahead and start this. I appreciate everybody coming out on the Texas Longhorns, Oklahoma Sooners game day to work on personal and professional growth tools. Today we're talking about pacing and leading. I know that at least two gentlemen in here have spent a little bit of time studying up on what neuro-linguistic programming is. So I'm going to kind of get a little bit of back and forth from you guys. Everybody understands what pacing and leading is differently from one another. So let's kind of get a baseline of right now what we believe it to be as of right now. So what is pacing and leading? Nobody just like jump out and
That's
say
what I'm
anything.
trying to think of.
Just in the best words, how it makes sense to you, because really that's the message that we need, is how this story is told by you.
Never heard the pacing.
Okay, all right.
And for leading, I would assume it's something that you're trying to get them to where you're wanting them to be.
Sure, let's just start with what it sounds like. What is pacing? If I'm
Almost like,
pacing.
you're
Movement at a
the
gradual
same tempo, the same speed.
Pacing, right? I'm setting a cadence, I'm running at the same speed, right? No.
Exclude a type of movement. Or
Sure, so you're pacing, if we can think of someone pacing up and down the hallways, what are they doing? They're maintaining the same track, running the same speed, and they're pacing. They're doing the same things over and over again, right? So pacing is basically getting on the same page. So in pacing, what we're doing is we're communicating what is happening.
as it's happening.
As it's happening. So that's what pacing is. So then what would leading be?
Either speed it up or slow it down. Change the.
Could be to change
The
the
pace.
tempo or the pace
Or the direction.
or the direction. So when you're leading, are you still pacing? Making sure that you're keeping the same exact tempo, the same exact speed.
Let's say you're changing it.
So leading has a purpose, right?
You're trying to get the other person to arrive at a certain
To
destination.
follow you to a certain destination. Bingo. So, if you want to lead to a certain destination, what do you have to know?
Where you're going.
Outcome. This is where we start, guys. Number one. Okay, the first thing when using any skill like neuro-linguistic programming, anything where you're trying to influence another person and persuade them to see things from a new perspective, you have to make sure that you first develop a clear, crystal clear outcome. You're thinking about this like a journey. We're going on a road trip together. And this road trip is going to have 5 different stops. And stop number 1, we can't even start the car to get to stop number 5 until stop number 1 is totally done. We got to fuel up, get ready, know where we're headed, map it out, know the destination. So rule number 1 is the outcome. And this is how I talk about outcomes. I want the outcome to be pure. Okay? So the first thing it has to do is it has to be what? You've seen this before.
Purpose?
Close. It does have a specific purpose. It's going to be, I want you to think of positive. Okay? It has to be positively stated. It's what I do want to happen, not what I don't want to happen. It cannot be formed and will not be effective if it's like, I never want to go through this again. I never want to lose another sale. How do I make sure I don't lose this sale? How do I make sure that my kid doesn't talk back tonight? How do I make sure that the next time I talk to my wife that she doesn't punch me in the face? How do I make sure? How do I do that? Wrong way to develop a goal. You'll never get a positively stated outcome that way. Your brain will only be imagining the situation that you don't want. And what happens whenever you're imagining what you don't want?
Get more of that.
You get more of that because your mirror neurons activate and the brain latches onto it. So the first thing you have to do is make a positively stated outcome. Now let's think about ways you might apply that to sales. Anyone in here a salesperson? Right? Okay, now we're going to apply this to sales. What might a positively stated well-formed outcome be with a sale? What's the outcome that you want with the next client you meet?
We'll be able to get the information across to them so they can make a good buying decision.
So your positively stated outcome is that I will communicate very clearly and very well, be able to understand what they're saying to me, and I'll be able to say the exact right thing. And how's that going to make you feel?
Empowered.
You'll feel empowered, right? Do you guys see how going the direction of what I do want to happen? We don't mention at all what could happen if it goes bad. We state exactly the positive outcome we want, okay? Now, how much of that's under your control?
So most, if not 100%.
No, all of
I mean, if I choose,
So what aspect, what part of that back and forth between you and the client is under your control?
Your part.
So let's state that positively stated outcome as it pertains to you. What is under your control of this interaction?
Because you can't make the other person
I can't do anything about their response.
decide the way you want them to. So
Nope, I can't control other humans. And that is not the reason you learn neuro-linguistic programming. It's not about control. It's about communication. It's about accessing the potential of the human mind to understand what another person's thinking, feeling, hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching. You want to hear it, you want to feel it, you want to know it. Okay? And that's what this is about. And getting on the same page is being able to communicate clearly what is happening. Okay? So what's under your control of that interaction, Michael?
all those, what I convey, how I feel.
Okay?
Attitude.
Attitude. What type of energy level do you want to bring into it?
I would think maybe just slightly higher than theirs.
Okay? All right. Would that be pacing?
Yes.
If
Well-
you're slightly higher than them, are you
Well,
pacing?
I probably need to start being even.
Okay.
Even with them.
So what part of this is under your control, right?
Yeah.
So we're only worried about our control.
Right.
So I'm going to match their pace. I'm going to be able to understand what type of feelings that they come in here with. And when I do, it's going to look like,
Then
and what outcome will I have?
that should be a positive outcome.
Should be a positive outcome. What positive outcome?
That they're understanding, and it's real to them. It feels real that they're.
So how will you know? What's going to end up happening? How will you know that it's real to them?
They do business with you.
They're agreeable.
when you get that, you'll get the feedback, the immediate feedback.
The immediate feedback.
Yeah.
Will you be able to identify whether or not this product is really good for them?
Yeah. I think they're more communicative with you.
If this is going well and you're really able to pace them, match them, and be able to understand in their reality and how they're seeing things, will you guys be in good enough rapport that you're communicating well, you're able to understand their needs,
Yes.
their wants?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how will that make you feel?
Oh, it's totally under control, or totally.
And what will it look like? How will you know that it's real? Right now, how do I know what that will look like? How do we make it real right now?
Yeah, I would say their posture.
I'll see their posture. I'll see how will they feel.
Yeah.
Will they feel like that I'm safe?
Yeah.
Will they feel comfortable? How will I notice that? How's that going to look like?
Facial expressions, posture.
Sure. So I know that if I'm communicating well,
Yeah.
under my control, if I'm listening, if I'm pacing them, if I'm hearing them, what's happening?
It's you're matching your.
We're feeling good, right?
Yeah.
You felt this before.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So now as it becomes real to you, what does it look like? You said posture. We're matching each other's posture. We're both comfortable. What else do you notice?
It's you're moving along a lot faster.
The conversation just feels like it's just flowing, right?
Yeah, there's
Back and
no
forth.
hiccups.
What does that look like?
Bright, energetic.
Bright and energetic. Does it look like a lot of this, like back and forth, like you say something, I say something, like a tennis match?
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going back and forth?
It's not just one person doing all
It's
of
not just one person going, here's my sales pitch, don't you love everything I have to say? Aren't you really loving it? Don't you really want it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It's a back and forth. It's a back and forth. Oh, is that what you want? Does that sound like it'll work out for you?
Yeah. What other?
That's right. So we want a picture of a tennis match, right? Something that's real. We need a tangible, what is it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What's it going to sound like? What's it going to smell like? Your outcome's got to be crystal clear. Okay, it's got to be real. Last thing, you're going to have to know the ecology of the person you're working with, okay? The ecology. When I get this outcome, is this all going to be positive? When I arrive at that outcome and I get, we're still talking about sales, when I communicate well, when I'm able to pace and keep up with them and we keep real time, when it's real and it looks like that and we're having that tennis match and everything's going well, at the end of that, is this person better?
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
As long
Are
as you're not selling them drugs or something.
Right.
Because it depends on what you're selling.
Is this person better? At the end of this outcome, you have to think, did I better the situation?
Absolutely.
What a way to, did I add value to them? Is that the way to put that?
You're really going to have to make sure that, first of all, that you check your ecology, like, am I proud of the products I sell? Do I believe in them? That's really the main thing you're going to have to know about. Because if you're selling women's, at the end of this, it does not matter what you've done. You're going to hate yourself.
It's like you pulled one over on them, but...
That's right. That's right. If you're selling anybody a product that you're not proud of, if they get to the end of that conclusion and it's not really what they needed, but you still close the deal because you learned how to speak their language and how to make them connect the dots, you're going to feel like shit and you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be part of your ecology and it's not going to be part of theirs.
Well, and eventually they're going to resent it because...
It's going to be negative. And do you think you'll get any referrals?
Yeah.
No. It's going to go downhill from there.
Yeah.
Your life may be okay for a little while, but eventually people are going to notice.
So very temporary.
You have to be proud of it. You have to love it. You have to be able to sell it and not feel badly about it. I can sell my kid on going to bed at 8 p.m. I don't feel bad about it at all. He doesn't want to.
Yeah.
He never wants to. But I sell him on it. Why? Because I know it's the best thing for him.
Yeah.
I know it's positive. You'll never convince me that's not a good idea. I'm fine with it. I'm cool with it. I have somebody else come along and go, that's not how I parent. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. That's fine. It's what I sell.
Yeah.
You know? And I sell him confidence and happiness and success too.
Right.
I don't beat him up. Whenever he does something stupid, I go, hey man, is that getting you the result you want? I don't know, maybe. Really? Maybe? I think I always know when I get the results I want.
Yeah.
Would you like to know how to make that happen? Would you like to see a way that's successful?
Right.
That you're not having to work so hard? Yeah. Would you like to do it or you want me to show you? I want to do it. Okay, great. So since you're teaching me, where do we start?
Show me how you do it.
See, it's okay to sell people on something you know is positive for them.
Right. Absolutely.
Something that's going to help them, something that's going to benefit them, and allow them to discover the best way to do that. And that's why we use pacing and leading as an offensive approach. Most of the time in sales, we're teaching the Socratic method. We're asking questions. The most powerful thing that you can do in sales is ask questions. But if you're going to take control of a situation, the most effective way to do that is through pacing and leading, because it's a way of getting that rapport socially going through language. You're getting agreement because you start with, as you sit there holding that pen and listening to the sound of my voice, you may begin to notice that this is making a lot of sense to you. That's a pace and a lead. I fed you two things that are actually happening, and then a third thing that I could have no way to know whether it's happening or not. As you sit there holding that pen and listening to the sound of my voice, those are two things that are happening.
Right.
I'm pacing along with you. What is occurring to you? What is happening? This is an agreement automatically because it is occurring. Okay? It doesn't matter what you use there as long as it is occurring. It's fine. As you sit there comfortably, probably wearing pants. I mean, it really doesn't matter as long as it's true.
Right.
The brain will then begin to agree with the person that's speaking because it's real, it's true, it's factual. and then you lead into the and because A and B are true, also C is true, and the human brain just kind of follows right along with that. Okay, so now, does everybody understand how to form a well-formed outcome?
Yes. Very good.
Okay, I really, really want to hear one person on anything that's like a normal, typical thing. Let's say weight loss. Somebody comes to me and they want to lose weight. And I ask them a question, you know, like, okay, what are you coming to me for? How would they create an outcome?
They'll state, well, why they're there, so whether it's weight loss or
Mhm.
muscle gain or.
Right, and then I'll say, what's that going to look like?
I want to weigh X.
I want to weigh X. I want to look like this.
My waist.
I want to achieve that. Positively stated, right? What about if somebody comes to me and says, I want to quit smoking?
Gotta rephrase that.
How?
Want to be healthy?
I'm going to ask them, how does that look if it's a positively stated outcome?
What would you get out of quitting smoking?
So if I'm on the other side of it, what is it that I do want? So if someone comes to me and says, I want to quit X, how do I reframe that positively? How do I say that in a positive goal?
I
I
want
want
to,
to quit X.
I want to gain or be Y.
I would rather be Y. Okay? I don't want X anymore. I don't care. Then I'm not interested in what X is then. Great. Let's move on to what you do want. Positively stated outcomes. Great. Cool. I'm done with X too. You done with it? I'm done with it. What's Y look like? Okay? So you have to get this right. You can't move on to step 2 without step 1, and step 1 is the vital part of NLP. It doesn't matter whether you're using reframing, it doesn't matter whether you're using pacing and leading, the switch pattern, mapping across, the well-formed outcome has got to be crystal clear, it's got to be positively stated, everything's got to be under your control in the way that you're framing this and preparing your outcome. It's got to be real to you. You got to know what it's going to look like when it's happening, so that when it's happening, you get it. And you know that tennis match is going when it's happening. You're going to have to know. You're going to have to know what that outcome looks like, and then you have to check the ecology. Is my heart going to be okay at the end of this, and is their heart going to be okay at the end of this?
Right.
In your real life situations when you're dealing with people, is it common that they don't know how, that they don't know what they want, they only know what they don't want?
Correct.
So you have to go.
Correct. That is the most common dialogue that we get, is that people are unhappy with something they're feeling right now, or something in their life is causing them a pain. They can't see a solution,
Right.
but they want one.
They just want the symptom of the
They want the symptom to go away, and they can't even imagine what it would look like if it went away, because they just can't. They're in it.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of a storm, and they need somebody to show them what it's going to look like when the sun starts shining again.
So for the ecology part at the end, do you ever get people who you go through all these steps and then it turns out it's just not good?
Yes.
How do you
Yes.
turn that around?
Yes. Now let me show you how this happens, though. I want to quit X. Okay, great. Is there anything that X is doing for you that you enjoy?
I'll take that. If we're going back to weight loss, I want to quit taking extra calories. So
Okay.
soda, it's caffeine and sugar. It's a quick, it really gives me a quick boost.
The caffeine and the sugar combination gives you that little bit of pickup, and that's what you really do it for, right?
Right.
And that's what it's positively doing for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that does that for you?
Could be
You saw that, right? You saw what happened right there, and he went right into it. He has an answer. What is it?
any kind of fruit, maybe some kind of power bar.
Okay, so fruit or a power bar. Could you see yourself maybe reaching for fruit or a power bar instead of a Coke?
Yeah.
You can. And whenever you think about that, does that seem like a solution?
Yeah.
Okay, do you guys see what just happened there? When I got to checking on ecology, he was like, I don't know that I want to quit the sodas because it does something for me. Gives me energy, gives me that pickup. Is it okay to let it go? Is there anything else that we can move on? Is it okay for this to be a positive outcome? Could we get to where you could see yourself on the other side of this situation, to where you have positively stated outcome? So what I need to do is find out if they're sure about it, because they already have had this conversation with themselves so many times.
Yeah.
They've already convinced themselves that there is no solution, or else they would have already found it, right? So when someone comes to you in a sales situation, or a situation where you're leading them to an outcome that you know is positive, you have to check that ecology. You have to see, is there anything about this that's doing something positive for you? Is there anything about this that's going to be hard to let this go? That's checking the ecology. When we get to the end of this, and I meet your needs, and I give you exactly what it is you want, are you going to feel satisfied? Are you going to be happy with that outcome? Is there any way that you can see me selling you this product and you getting it and receiving it and it being exactly what you wanted and solving this issue? Is there any way on the other side of that this is a bad thing?
No.
Okay.
It's new.
I just need to double check. Just double check that ecology. And then, hey, what's going on? Welcome. And then once you get to that place and you understand that, you get that ecology down, now you're able to move on to the actual pacing leading process. First step one is the most important part of any NLP technique, and that's why I made sure that we just hammered on it. Because you can forget about 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can forget about 2, 3, 4, and 5 if one's wrong. If you don't get one correct. So does everyone think they got a really good picture of how to develop a well-formed outcome?
It's pure.
It's got to be pure, right? Got to be a pure outcome. Great. So let's move on to step number 2. Now we're going to talk about pacing. So you guys, the most easy causal link in pacing is as you. As you, okay? Become comfortable with using that, and you will begin to be very skillful in leading people naturally. As you sit there and you consider this, you'll probably begin to notice that you're agreeing with everything I'm saying. As you use as you, it just allows the brain to link up the thoughts. Causal phrases that begin with a either are going to have what later on in the sentence?
The or.
What's the brain listening for?
The or.
So that it can compare the two. When you begin a sentence with as you, the brain immediately begins looking for the thing that it is doing, and then what else comes with along with the as I'm doing this? What's coming next?
So we don't want comparison and contrast.
No, you want 2 lines of agreement and then a third lead.
Right.
Yeah, you want yeses as much as you can get. Yeses as much as you can get, so I set that up with my language. Okay? Now, this isn't going to be natural for you at first because it's just not a way that the brain likes to start a sentence. But you'll begin to notice as you start to use this that it becomes very natural and easy. And as you begin to see yourself using this in more and more situations, the brain begins to acknowledge that this could be very, very easy and natural. Do you see that?
Because we're talking about it now and it's very obvious, it seems like a huge giant red
Flag. It's right in your face because I'm waving it.
Right, but when you're talking to people, they don't call you out on it. They don't say why.
I've never, ever had anyone even notice. Never. And it's because I don't always use as you. Right. It's the easiest causal link.
But there are others.
There are others, but I want to start there so that you can see them.
Right.
And now, as you begin to see them, it becomes blaringly obvious. As I begin to use them, the brain begins to see them very easily.
Right.
And as you notice me using them, it'll probably become more and more obvious. The more and more that I use them, the more and more your brain will start to acknowledge that I'm using them. You see, I'm pacing and leading it the whole time.
Right.
And then, so another one is some people. Some people, the brain starts looking for what?
Those people.
Those people.
Social proof.
Not everybody needs
X.
X. Some people brain begins to look for the categories, begins to put themselves in it, automatically starts to systematically see, am I the people, am I in it? It's looking, trying to find ways for it to fit in it. Okay, but let's stick with as you today. That way you can get natural with it. As you sit there holding a pen, as you sit there listening to the sound of my voice, just get comfortable with starting to use it in conversation. You might begin to wonder what it is that we're talking about today. And as your mind becomes curious, it may become more and more open to the possibilities of the ways in which you will be able to do this. It starts to get circular, right? It starts to kind of make you get hazy. It's because there's so many causal links. The brain is trying to follow the either's, or's, as's, now, and since you did that, this might cause you to and force you to, and the brain's just kind of keeping up. Like, how many things is it going to cause me to do? What am I supposed to do? And the brain's looking. And starts putting itself in those categories.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's really, really a lot of fun too. And the more you start to see it work, and the more powerful it becomes in conversation, the better it begins to feel. Like you really start to utilize it more and more because it becomes the easiest way to get the person to follow along. They begin trying to follow those cues. They're looking for those causal phrases. They're looking for the either or ending.
Right.
So they're really involved in this. It's very metaphoric. The brain starts to try to make judgments and things like that. And so it's having to imagine these things. Yes, sir.
Are you adding sensory
I am.
in that?
I am. So what is the best way? What is the best way to access the senses to get that person to experience what it is you're pacing? We've learned quite a bit about these.
Right, visual, audio, kinesthetic.
Visual, auditory, kinesthetic languages, right? So what types of words am I going to be using?
You see,
What about if I want them to hear what I'm talking about?
you hear me.
Okay? And what if I want them to
Feel.
feel, right? So I'm going to be using a lot of, in my pacing, I'm going to be making sure that I am talking about things that they can either see, hear, or feel right now. As it occurs. This is what is happening. We're pacing. And we want them to pace what they currently see, hear, feel. Okay? You're pacing along right now as you listen to me talk. You see me wearing this black shirt and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I'm not exactly sure where he's going with this. These are all just paces. I'm just giving you exactly what's happening right now. I'm not even sure where I want to lead yet, too, because right now I'm only demonstrating pacing because it's important that you see it to where you get to feel what it's like. Most of these statements where I'm pacing is just saying either and then waiting, and getting you an or. All I'm doing is setting you up with the as you begin to see, hear, or feel a thing, this will also help you to realize that you're doing this, and that enables you to, that allows you to, that causes you to, that forces you to. So once we set the brain up with these causal chains, when we get to that last thing, the brain is in agreement. Because as you sit there listening to the sound of my voice, that forces you to understand how to do this yourself. Did you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
The third thing is something I couldn't possibly know certainly, but the brain accepts it instinctively. It just feels right. It just sounds right. It just looks right when I hear that.
Empowering.
Yeah, it's empowering. You get to the end of that and you're like, oh yeah. As I sit here listening to the sound of his voice and I feel that feeling on the inside of me, I do think that I can see myself being able to do this. The brain just acknowledges it unconsciously. It's a subconscious acceptance of this. Does that make sense? So we want to start with as you. Let's hear a form of this from Oscar. Just kind of give it a shot. Anything that is currently happening.
As we're sitting here listening to James give his presentation on pacing and leading, you may find, or it may cause you to consider how to use this later on in the day, if you're with someone.
Very good. And he actually included a lead. I didn't actually even anticipate him to go all the way through with the lead. That was great. He went through a pace and then immediately had a lead to follow it up with. What do you think, Michael?
Let's use widget. As you see this bright colored red widget.
Mm-hmm. Which one now? What are you talking?
Just as you compute.
Mm-hmm. But what widget are you talking about?
Oh, I'm just making up a fake product.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is a product out here in front of us?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so do you guys see this product now that he's talking about? All right, so here's a red widget here. Okay, everyone in agreement now? So it is what is happening. Okay?
So as you see our Acme red widget, and you feel the smooth texture of this, now you will think about how you can use this even now while you are trying to use this in your business.
Really good, really good. Hey,
Trying to,
you got to start practicing with it to get it where it's natural.
Yeah.
Okay? So next time, try to choose something that actually does exist
Right.
as a starting point, so that you're not having to imagine the thing that it is that you're pacing.
Yes.
Okay, so as you sit here listening to me speak now, is something that nobody's brain is going to argue with.
So the more concrete and immediate the paces are, then you can add the beat at the end.
As you consider the amount of light in the room and you think about and notice that we're all sitting here comfortably, that forces you to
Buy this red widget.
buy this red widget.
Want this red widget.
To all of a sudden you may begin to notice an extreme intensity to buy this red widget. Okay, so that's where you hit them with the pacing, what is occurring. And as you sit here and listen to the occasional sounds behind you and the rustling of things, and you hear shifting and breathing of other people, you may begin to notice that you start to see how this works. The first things I said had nothing to do with the end. They were entirely unrelated, but I was pacing things that are actually occurring now. Okay? You want to give it another shot or come back around?
background.
All right, go for it, Bill.
As we sit here looking at the white board with the black lettering, and we also notice the jar of colored pens sitting here on the front table, that will cause us to appreciate the blue sky and puffy clouds that we see later on this afternoon when we go outside.
That was pretty damn good. Did you guys see it? I saw the puffy clouds, I saw the blue sky, and I felt like I'm going to appreciate that more.
I started smiling.
I did. I started smiling. I felt it. You sold me on it. And all you did was pace what's going on. As you sit here listening, or looking at that whiteboard with the black marks all over it, and then your eyes begin to shift over to the pens that are sitting on the desk, you'll begin to notice that once you step outside, that blue sky and the puffy clouds are going to make you feel alive.
I like that phrasing better too, because
It's so natural.
I was going
using
for
it.
the contrast from black and white, but then you say shift your eyes over to the color.
Yeah, well, I
You
knew,
see
I could
people-
tell when, and I'm listening to you on a level that most people here wouldn't be able to. I could tell what you did.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I could tell what you did, and then that's why I wanted to give it to everybody a little bit better, so that they
Yeah,
can
nice.
really see what happened there. And the more you can use body language with pacing and leading, guys, it helps a lot too. It
You
does.
can actually start to see people's eyes follow you as
That's
you
right.
point things out.
Yeah, as you sit here listening to the sound of my voice and noticing the whiteboard with the black lettering, and then you notice the pens over here on the desk, you might begin to feel.
Right. And that all just adds to the pacing, right?
Yeah, because this is all body. This is better communication than me actually saying the whiteboard with black lettering anyway.
Right.
Body language is so much more effective to communicate your message. But that was really, that was very, very well laid out, and it didn't seem like you were following a formula. It felt really natural whenever I was listening to you do it.
If we were doing, like to harp on this a little further,
Sure.
doing the body language part, Could you actually just sit up there and say, as you look at this, and then you shift your eyes to look at that, then you're gonna think of, and it would still
Absolutely.
retain that.
Absolutely. It's just as powerful, and in fact, it takes so much less effort.
Well, I was
to
gonna
do
say,
that.
that's more efficient. That's
It's
way
so
more
much less effort, and it gives visual frames of reference.
Right.
It's beautiful.
So
I'm
just
really
looking-
glad you were able to bring that in, because yeah, if you can actually get people to do that, this is pretty simply how to make your body a visual aid. So you can almost say, you know, as you consider what it might feel like to be happy and full of energy, and then you might notice that you're kind of giving them two different frames of reference, and then
Bring it together.
and then whatever that third thing is,
Right.
that's how you bring those two together. Have you ever noticed that whenever you go to buy something, that first of all, it's got to feel right, but it's got to make sense too. It's got to be the right thing. So I'm confident that as you sit here and listen to what I'm going to try to encourage you to do, I think that you'll notice that that feeling is there, and whenever it starts to begin to make sense, I believe that we'll just be able to make that happen. So that's a pacing and then a very, very subtle lead.
But you're reinforcing the.
And you're doing it more here than you are even with the language patterns, but I was putting the language patterns along with the visuals so that your brain can really see it happen in real time. That makes sense? You want to go for one more? Give it a shot.
So as you consider why we are sitting in the room learning about pacing and leading, as we sit here in this beautiful lit up room at the library, okay, hold on.
You got it, man. You're nailing it.
Alright, so as we sit here comfortably in this really well lit room, we can clearly see James teaching us something about pacing and leading. And now, you know, I don't know how considering it will allow you to also think about how.
It's okay because that's okay because you probably didn't pre-frame the outcome.
Yeah.
And all I really wanted to get was pacing,
Okay.
which you were able to do. The outcome is irrelevant. We haven't formed the outcome. Right now we're learning pacing. We did learn that the outcome is the most important thing before we start pacing. So think about what it is that you want us to consider before you begin talking, and then pace it, and your brain will automatically get to the lead.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So let's say when I begin talking right now, I want you to consider checking out a library book before you leave, and I just set that up in my brain, okay? And I don't want anybody to, don't be tranced into doing this, okay? I'm not telling you you need to get a library book after this, but this is how I would do it, okay? As we sit here in this well-lit room at the library and we listen to James speaking on pacing and leading, you may be considering that you're starting to feel an urge to check out a book that's related to this subject, and I think that that's fine. Pacing and leading, I paced you into it, but I had the outcome first. I used your same pace. It's fine. Did you notice it was natural? No problem. That was your pace. You invented it. Worked fine, didn't it? Everybody did kind of feel that, like, yeah, I think, yeah, I could see myself there. What do you think, Michael? Want to give it another shot? Create an outcome first. I liked that you started with the widget. We could have led to that. We just don't want to start with that. We can lead to any outcome once it's well formed.
Let's say as you leave your house today and you feel comfortable about the weather, you see that it's going to be a beautiful day, you're going to know that it's going to be a great day for you.
That
Clear.
That was, so I'm going to talk to you about what you just did because you reframed and put future tense on what we're doing.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get you to pace yourself now, but imagine yourself being able to do this in a future situation, and your brain is putting you automatically into future situations. So consider now, and as you sit here considering the fact that we're in the present moment, you're going to begin to notice what's currently occurring. And as you begin to notice what's currently occurring, your brain is going to automatically start to tell us what you're seeing, hearing, and feeling that's happening now. And we're all going to pace along with you. So now, as you consider the way that you'll do that, I want you to notice that you begin to develop your own way of doing this. And go.
As we sit in this, as you see this whiteboard clearly, and you hear the speaker in a comfortable tone,
Boom.
you're
Done.
able to learn more about the topic that he's discussing.
Boom. Nailed it. You guys hear it? Did you see the shift into the present? You watched it happen in real time, and all I did was pace him and lead him into it, sold him on it, and he was able to do it.
I followed you the whole way. You walked away. I was forced to keep turning.
Did you see that? So that is as easy as it works. Even now, while he's learning his brain's natural programming, I was able to pace him and lead him into the way I wanted his brain to operate right now. And he'll be able to apply this in future situations because he was able to see it and do it in real time. Now, I don't know to what extent you'll apply this in every circumstance in your life. But as you begin to leave here and as you begin to use this, I think that it will be more and more effective the more naturally that you begin to utilize it. Okay? Now what that is right there is it's allowing the unconscious mind to accept a new way of thinking. And that is called a hypnotic induction. What I just did right there was put in a subconscious anchor, and his brain is now going to be looking for ways for him to naturally apply this in his own life.
But only because you agreed to it, correct?
He has to agree to it. And for him to be able to agree to it, what do I have to have done?
It has to be good ecology, good outcome.
I have to have already pre-framed this outcome, which I did over and over again before I got here. I focused on exactly the best way to communicate this. And in my opinion, from what I've seen, I used to try to do this formula-wise, where I gave people an X plus a Y and a Z and all this stuff. And what I found is it's far more effective to make people experience this in real time. Mm-hmm. Once you actually feel it, once you actually do it a few times, it's like, oh, I see how to do this. Okay? Bill, one more time, because you're naturally doing pretty well at this.
As we sit here getting towards the end of the class, we may find ourselves looking at our phones, but it's not because we want to leave, but probably because we wish we had more time to sit here and experience more of this.
What do you guys think, John? Nice, very well done. Yeah, Bill's naturally communicating this very, very well and instinctively, but Bill's also gone through a lot of communications courses.
Yeah.
And he's got experience he's an attorney, and so Bill is naturally very gifted and skilled in language and conversation anyway. So I want everyone here to realize, just like I talk about every time, whenever we're talking about the learning process, you're going to go through 4 stages. It doesn't matter what the subject is, what the topic is, but you're going to go through, I've never heard about this, I've never done this before in my life, which is unconscious incompetence. You cannot be aware of what you've never heard of. Okay, it's not your fault. It's not your brain's responsibility to know things you didn't know. Okay? But once you become aware of it, you're still not going to be good at it. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the first time we hear about something, we think we know everything about it and we're geniuses at it, and the more we discover about it, the less we know about it, and then we start curving up on the other side, and we start to educate ourselves, and we do become experts in the subject. So at first, it's going to feel really frustrating because we want to be good at stuff that we just learned about. So you go through that conscious incompetence stage where it's like, I don't have this. And then you get to the conscious competence stage where you got it, you know what it is, you know how to apply it to your life, it's working for you, but you're having to think about it. You're having to remember to pre-frame your outcomes every time. You're having to go through the steps. Okay, how do I do that? Okay, it's got to be positively stated. It's got to be under my control. It's got to be real. The ecology's got to be right. Let me pre-frame that. How's that going to look? How's it going to feel? How's it going to sound? Okay, I got that down. Got step number 1 down. And how was pacing and leading down? There's going to be moments like that, but you're going to arrive at a place where you're at unconscious competence, where you're not even having to think about it, and it's just flowing out of you naturally, and everybody that's around you is attracted to that, and just like, dude, that woman, that man is just like powerful. And when I'm around him, it's just like, man, I want to hear him talk more. And you're like, yeah, it's because of pacing and leading. Of course you do. Your brain can't help it. And at that point, this actually opens up your life on a whole new level, and it will make you more and more interesting in conversation. It'll make you more powerful in your deliveries, and it'll make you overcome more obstacles in your own life because you're going to start to be more intentional about what you do with your thinking, with your thought life. And there's not a more powerful place that you can ever come to and arrive at than that place. Everybody good with this?
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for interacting with me today. Give yourselves a hand. Did you want to try one before we go? This is your first time here, and I'm not going to put you on the spot if you don't want to.
No, totally.
Okay, cool.
I'm just kind of, as you guys noticing, I was late.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Pretty good start. As you were noticing that I came in late, you might have considered that this is a new face that I haven't seen before, and that may have made you curious and interested in who I am and what I do.
So I missed what's going to be the pacing and what is the leading.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of grappling it as
And I will send you a copy of this video.
I would love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the most important part that you missed was the outcome, and guys, how important was that?
Well, we saw a good example. You can't make up the paces if you don't know what the outcome is.
Boom. You gotta know the outcome first. You can't even move down the list, but I guarantee you, you get one right, the brain is naturally gonna help you with the rest of the steps. It just will, because once that outcome is solid, you've got it and it's positively stated, it is what you do want, it's under your control, so it's everything that you can do to make this happen. It's real, so you've seen the outcome, you know what it's gonna look like, sound like, and feel like, and then you've checked the ecology, so you know everybody in the end is gonna be happy. They're going to be positive about these results. Your brain can't help it, man. It wants that. And it will use this skill to help you get it. Okay? Now, this right here, I stole from a colleague. So, Mayur is going to watch this. I know he will. He's my buddy from India. And he gave me this last week in a workshop that we did online for a Master NLP course. And he started with goals, and then I taught 3 different methods in NLP to get those goals. But I thought this was brilliant. I thought it was great, and it applies to any well-formed outcome, any goal that you want to get in your life. So I highly encourage anybody, take that model, and if there's anything in your life that you do want to achieve and you do want, use that. It's a powerful way to make it happen. And a template is always a good way to start. Okay? Thanks, guys. Give yourselves one more hand. Let's get out of here. Go watch a football game if you watch football.